Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. I'm one of your announcers, SirAshtown, and we are here at Charlie's Collectible show for their Lorcana 10K in round 7, best of 3. Join with me is Hal. How's it going?
We've had a lot of fun matches on camera. The last round, we got to see just kind of a masterclass on the Ruby Amethyst mirror match, and this is a match I've seen some people in the chat asking we could show. Up to the more popular decks in the format for sure. And we've got Mark Zalf versus Ryan O'Ree, and Mark on Ruby Amethyst side, and Ryan on just the bad guy deck of the format. The Emerald Steel Bucky Diablo list. And just kind of like we were talking about earlier today, the Ruby Amethyst seems to have a pretty well-rounded matchup against most of the other top decks in the format, but except against possibly the Emerald Steel Bucky deck, which took down the Chicago Challenge and may or may not be the most powerful, most popular deck in the game. So that's tough to have a bad matchup versus, but we've seen some top players here today on Ruby Amethyst. I would be shocked to think if none of them just had a game plan going into that matchup. So either they've added some new tech cards or they've just rethought how to play the matchup to get an edge. So we'll see how it goes. It looks like Ryan is on the play and see if he's got a turn one. Nope, he had no one drop. So over to Mark. Ink Snake, play a turn box followers.
Actually dropping his card, looking as Inkwell again. Just kidding. He is here with a turn 1 Chernobog's followers with Ryan, who we've seen already on the stream. I was talking with Luca, who had won round 6 against Kindle, and he was saying that this is one of the matchups that he's been trying to dodge today. And so I'm sure Mark here does have a game strategy, but again, is a tough matchup like you were saying.
Yeah, we see Ryan, no one drop, but that's okay. We've got Bucky on 2. I see a Diablo in his hand, possibly for a turn 3 play. Mark decides to quest with the followers, not going to banish it for the extra card just yet, opting to put that card back into his hand for the Madam Mim Snake. And we'll see what Ryan decides to do on turn 3. I think I do possibly see the Steel Aladdin as well. Oh no, that was a Baboom actually. So I see an Ursula Deceiver of All and a Diablo, so a couple different options he could go for on turn 3. And decides to go with Diablo. It does trigger the Bucky, considering against Ruby Amethyst, most of them are on 3 to 4 of the new removal action card Brawl. And that's a tough decision, deciding do I want to expose my Diablo or my Ursula Deceiver of All to that turn 3 Brawl. But at least with the Diablo being a Floodborn, they did have to discard a card, so it still ended up being a 2-for-1.
That's something like you were saying, Hal, is that you got to try to find plays that really give you a step ahead, extra resources. It gives you an advantage, or you get cards in addition to just the one card you played. And we saw Ryan do that here with the Diablo, even though he lost it to the Brawl, making it to where your opponent has to get rid of it or you're going to draw a bunch. Makes it very good.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the most important card in this matchup from Ryan's side is going to be Bucky. Don't get me wrong, Diablo is terrifying, and with the Ruby Amethyst bounce deck looking to draw a bunch of cards off of Friends and the Rabbits, and even all of their 1-drops also cantripping for an additional 1 card, it's really just all about Bucky because they don't have any answers to it because since it does have Ward, just every character they play after that most likely is going to be a Floodborn. Now, Ryan did opt to go with that Ursula Deceiver of All, and Mark had another Brawl to go with it. So we'll see if Ryan does have a Floodborn to keep this discard train going. Exerting 5 ink for Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, and yet again discarding a card to the Bucky, and Ryan's already down to 2 cards with just that 3/3 Snake in play. See what he's got. Now he's free to do a bunch of card draw effects if he's got them, because that Diablo is gone, and so it's a green light to draw as many cards as possible.
Oh, and having the hard cast that Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, got some value out of that discard, but like you're saying, here he is with Mark, finding a way to try to get some lore that Queen's Castle not able to be easily removed unless Ryan having that Along Came Zeus.
Yeah, I couldn't make that actual last card out. I saw the Ursula Deceiver and the Hidden Cove, and I was thinking potentially, well, we may have to go for a Hidden Cove line to set up a way to take out that castle, but Ryan's just got the cleaner answer with the Along Came Zeus. But Mark does have the Rabbit. We saw that revealed to the Ursula Deceiver, and so Mark's got a couple cards left in his hand, nothing too crazy in play. Let's see if Ryan can top deck Floodborns here going forward. 5 ink, almost assuredly, it's the Tragic Beast, which is not great for Mark's side. He discards a rabbit. Be curious to know what that last card is if he's deciding to discard rabbits at this point.
And Beast, what a great draw here. Just giving you the ability to find resources if your opponent can't do any damage to it or get rid of it. Ryan here, most likely loving seeing it, but here's a response from Mark with that Madame Medusa. A great addition that targets and is able to get rid of Beast immediately when it enters.
Yeah, so the last card in Mark's hand from last turn could have either been the Friends of the Other Side or the Medusa. If I had to guess, it's probably the Medusa is the one that is worth holding on to. And if you talked about the Friends, you get to just sing it for free with the rabbit. You secure the 16th, you get Medusa in play, you take out the Tragic Beast. Ryan top decks a Sudden Chill and takes out Mark's last card. But now we're kind of at this awkward stalemate. Mark has made it to 6 ink, which is kind of a breaking point. A lot of the times the Bucky lists want to run them out of cards before they can secure 6 or 7 ink so that their top decks are a little anemic. But yeah, I mean, once you're on 6 or 7, you're threatening to top deck Madame Medusa, be prepared. And Mark's got a couple of rabbits in play too. And Ryan pretty much just has this Bucky, but I mean, Mark has no card. The champion Sherwood can't do a ton. Madame Medusa being a 4/4. Yeah, I mean, that losing that beast, I mean, Mark's just kind of had all the answers this game. Double Brawl, taking out those early threats, and then getting to double Rabbit and Madame Medusa is kind of the dream scenario. And Ryan's only at 2 lore, so not really running away yet. So he's going to get 2 from the champion Sherwood. Decides to throw away the Ursula Deceiver, finish it off with the Robin Hood. And yeah, I mean, card for the turn is fine for Mark. It's just the 2/2 heroic out, or the out. I don't know, something outlaw. The 1-drop Robin Hood.
And here we see Mark using that rabbit just to clean up that champion Sherwood. Mark also having a King Undisputed. Ryan trying to decide if it's worth having the Bucky.
That's actually funny. Yeah, I think he looked at his hand. Might be foreshadowing another champion in Sherwood in hand, but you've already got 5 ink. You might as well just keep the Bucky because, I mean, 2 cards on Mark's board also draw him additional cards. So if you draw a removal effect, you could banish one of those, draw him the card, and then you play another Floodborn and immediately take the extra card that they drew, kind of deleting all of that value. But doesn't have the removal, just goes with the champion of Sherwood, and has 1 card left. Mark's still in top deck mode, but plenty of ink. Rabbit to bounce if he draws some bounce effects. Besides the quest for the rabbit, that's probably bad news. That probably means we're going to be bouncing it. It's another Madam M snake, drawing more cards with rabbit, and this is really what the Bucky list does not want to see. I mean, once the Bucky list is pretty much in top deck mode, they're not going to be making you discard multiple cards. So if you can draw upwards of 2 or 3 cards a turn, you have this like safety net for Bucky, right? Worst case scenario, they make me discard 1, I discard the worst card. I still got the best 1 or 2 cards left, unless they're able to string together like a Sudden Chill and a Floodborn, or somehow do double Floodborns on. I mean, he's got 6 ink. It is possible, but it's unlikely once you're in just the top deck mode.
And being up on lore like he is right now, I know it's 9-4, which isn't a huge gap, but if you're top decking to try to find your plays and you're able to keep some cards in your hand against a Bucky deck, Mark's going to end up finding ways to try to broaden that gap even further.
Yeah, and he does find a 3-drop Floodborn. It's the Aladdin, and let's see. Yeah, no, I think Ryan is out of cards other than that. It's just the Aladdin. And Mark's with the Maleficent. Also on the Maleficent Sorceress. We've pretty much seen this in every copy of Ruby Amethyst that we've had on stream this weekend. And maybe that's one of the cards that they decided to go with to help shore up this Emerald Steel Bucky matchup. You just have multiple cards that come into play and draw cards. It's funny, though. It's such a weird dance in the matchup, though, because you have these cards that replace themselves and let you get on board and get things going to play around the Bucky. But if they ever have the active Diablo, it all kind of just like feels really bad. So it's such a tightrope you have to walk.
Like you're saying, we saw Luca have it. We've seen No I'm Not have it. And now we see Mark here having Maleficent Sorceress. This may be the comeback of it.
Yep, Aladdin going to go ahead and take out the rabbit. Let's see. I think Mark is considering drawing a card or not, and they may just not. So pretty heavy assumption that they're just going to have a discard anyway. He does go ahead and decide to draw it. I had no assumptions that he had forgotten. It was just, it's actually something to consider. But you might as well do it. Make him have it. It's not like Ryan gets any value out of you discarding an additional card. It's not like they have a Prince John in play or anything. But I think you just make them have it. There's no reason not to. If they don't, you get the extra card. And they're going to want to get that rabbit off the table regardless. But you see here, now that's the way to use the Cusco. You get to banish it on your turn and drawing the extra card, and then you get to dump your entire hand to kind of play around the Bucky. Follows that play up with a Queen's Castle, and everybody is in the castle. So if Ryan's going to need another answer to this pretty much immediately, it's deciding to go ahead and quest because we're getting to that zone. He's at 14. Ryan with just the Bucky and the Jafar Dreadnought. Almost surely the Jafar is probably going to go into maybe the Maleficent or the Goat to draw an extra card, but that means that's 3 less damage that can go into the castle. You would almost need another Along Came Zeus or something of the like to really help clean up that castle, and I don't believe the Emerald Steel list play too many of those Along Came Zeus. I've seen, honestly, either 0, 1, maybe 2 max, but yeah, I mean, we see the Tragic Beast in hand, but it's a little too late going here. And yeah, I just decided to scoop it up. It's just a little too much on Mark's side. He can answer 1 or 2 things, but the lore deficit's too much. The Goat's going to gain an extra lore, and the Queen's Castle, he can't answer it. That's just going to gain 2 free lore regardless.
And here we are in our Game 2 feature match over here in Round 7 in Best of 3. We see John Rowe versus Frank with an Emerald Steel versus a Amber Steel.
Now, this does look like a little bit more traditional Steel song. We did have an Amber Steel list on the stream earlier today. We didn't get to see too much of it. It did feature that Aerial Sonic Warrior, but it didn't look like they had a lot of the other singers. It looked just like some Amber Steel cards they had put together. It wasn't necessarily a traditional Steel song list. And Frank appears to be running that. We've seen, the Queen and that one-drop Cinderella, the Aerial Singer, and then the Aerial Sonic Warrior has kind of become more of a mainstay. It really helps. If you in the mid to late game against these Emerald Steel decks, if you get to that mid to late game, you can shoot things down like that Pegasus or obviously the Diablo. But John has got this Hidden Cove, 2 Buckies, a Pegasus, an Ursula, and a Diablo in play. It's a lot of things for Frank to have to answer. But the lore deficit isn't too crazy. John's at only 5. The Bucky list usually doesn't run away with the lore race too much until they've pretty much dealt with all of your opponent's cards. But Steel Song's actually kind of a slow luring deck as well, unless they can get something like Pride Lands running or the Flute. It's usually traditionally pretty slow at getting lore as well. This matchup is all going to come down to who controls the board. Can the Emerald Steel control their opponent's hand? And then eventually someone will be able to run away with it. But we've got Frank looks like about to possibly sing something with that Cinderella. And pretty amazingly, it looks like John has had to deal with double Aerial Sonic Warrior. We see that we don't talk about Bruno in the discard, which is a card we haven't really seen all weekend, but has a nice clean answer to a 3/8 that normally Steel would have trouble dealing with. Frank taking a look at all of his options. We see a Piglet in hand. I really like that Piglet in these Emerald Steel decks. Is like we were talking about earlier. Traditionally, Emerald Steel Steel Song has trouble gaining lore in the early game or even closing it out. But if you can control the early game with something like the one-drop Cinderella singing these Steel removal songs, and you can get that Piglet on 2, maybe a shift, or you need that 3rd character on 3, Piglet can kind of start running away with the game of questing for 3 a turn, which is be pretty devastating. And that's one of the weaknesses of the Steel Song list is just being able to close the game out or get enough lore before your opponent has time to draw the answers that they need. But yeah, just firing off several of these Steel Songs, targeting everything that he can on John's board, leaving that Ursula Deceiver potentially could take it out with a challenge, still considering that. And these Buckies with that Hidden Cove are going to be pretty much all that's left on John's side.
The thing that you were saying, these Amber Steel Song lists, I just love the fact that they play so many characters that just have the ability to sing so well. I mean, you have the one-drop Cinderella here that was able to sing Strength of the Raging Fire, Ariel, able to a 5-drop, or a Singer 5, 2 of them on the board. All of these sing together songs become very viable when you have some of these higher singing characters. Even in a Bucky list like this, there's some scary cards out there that have Sing Together that could really change the board state very quickly.
Yeah, one of the cards. It's funny you mentioned the Sing Together songs. One of the cards we saw out of the Steel Song deck from earlier, they were actually playing at least one copy of the Mob song, which is the 10 Sing Together non-inkable song. It was pretty funny because he was playing against that Ruby Amber locations deck we were seeing earlier, and was just desperately trying to like spread some damage to these locations, but. Unfortunately, I feel like this card needs to deal 5. Like, it already costs 10. It's so hard to sing. Maybe 5 would just be too much, but I don't know, man. Like, 3 damage to a location is just not enough. And you have to, so it's up to 3. Like, you can't even deal, like, 6 and 3 to 6 to 1 and 3 to another. You have to do 3 to 3 different targets. So it just seems a little underpowered, but it was interesting to see that new card coming out of the Steel Song list.
And here we are back in our first feature match of round 7, Mark versus Ryan. We saw that Mark had taken game 1. We see Ryan here now on a turn 2 Diablo.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's established the Diablo shift. I imagine he went turn 1 to Diablo, take a look at the hand. So it's guaranteed to get a song that Be Prepared out with the Deceiver Ursula, and then knows that the way is clear to go ahead and shift their Diablo on turn 2 as well. It's the power of knowing what your opponent has. They don't have that Brawl or even that, Peter Pan Shadow card that we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I mean, now you can just kind of run wild and then do everything you can to hopefully control the board or rip some more cards out of your opponent's hand.
And just the fact that you can turn 1 Diablo, turn 2, use your Ursula Deceiver to take a peek at your opponent's hand, rip the removal that they may have, or the card that they might have that's going to take care of your Diablo, and then shift for free using the Diablo. Really strong plays they can have, but here's Mark here with the Brawl, able to get rid of the Diablo.
Yeah, and who knows? We just kind of tuned into this game too, right in the middle of turn 2 or 3, so we didn't get to see the hand reveals for the Ursula and the 1-drop Diablo. So Ryan may have even seen the Brawl on the opposing side and just saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to get an extra free card out of my Diablo from the draw trigger, and then I'm going to force Mark's hand to use their turn 3 up by using Brawl on my Diablo. It may still be worth it situations, especially if you have the Bucky. It's you're going to get a card out of their hand, you get to draw an extra card, but Ryan missing the key card in this matchup really being the Bucky. I really think the Bucky is really the more important card in this matchup. Now, if you can secure a Diablo, it really puts a stranglehold on Ruby Amethyst. If they're trying to draw out of that situations, is you're just going to refill your opponent's hand as well. But we see the Flynn Rider, his own biggest fan, on Ryan's side. Seen that card do a lot of work this weekend. Helps fight opposing Diablos. Just a great shift. Floodborn only costs 2 to shift if you are opting to play the 1-drop. Yeah, Mark's developing on his side, gets a goat up to 2 lore, still with a decent amount of cards in their hand. 3, it's not too scary since Ryan hasn't developed a Bucky as of yet, and Ryan's only got 3 cards of his own. We do see a Bucky there, and it may end up being too little too late. A Bucky here may still be the play, so that way any other opposing flood or any other joining Floodbirds you can find, but he opts to just ink the Bucky, decides it's a little too late for that game plan. Let's get the Tragic Beast in play and let's see what kind of work we can do.
And we did get a small peek at Mark's hand, and we know he has a Maui. Just a lot of these different lines he can go with. Singing, though, the King Undisputed with the goat. We've seen that happen several times, and hard casting another.
Oh man, I mean that is powerful, but this is the downside of being King Undisputed. You can't combine it with some successful challenges or even a Brawl on the same turn. Because I mean, you basically spent 8 inks worth of removal, even though you didn't have to pay for one. You get to just do it with the goat on the other. But I mean, Ryan decided to banish a 2-drop Ursula and a 1-drop Robin Hood, and keeping his 2 best characters. He's still got that big Flynn and Beast getting to start drawing extra cards. Mark down to 2 cards. Maybe they're hoping to get to a turn 6 Medusa to take care of that Beast, and just decided to use a couple inkables. Now, something to note, you really do want to try to rid yourself of extra songs out of your hand, because if Ryan happened to top deck another Ursula, then they just get to rip that out of your hand for free, and then you're left with having to discard your other cards to something like Bucky or Sudden Chill of the like. So Ryan develops a Bucky, still has that active Beast in play. Let's see if Ryan has an answer. Maybe they'll have a 6 ink into a Medusa. Yeah, I mean, they really don't want to leave that beast in play for too long, but it's funny if they start playing out the cards a little too much, the Flynn also will get a lot more value. So besides the quest with the goat, bounce it back with the fox and get a little lore value there, start trying to get ahead in the lore race.
That's something right here that really needing to find a Medusa to take care of this beast, or else Ryan's going to be able to just draw so much and gain advantage.
Yeah, and Ryan still only 2 cards left in their hand, and Ryan has got this active Bucky as well. If he can rip those last couple cards out of his hand, we see another Flynn Rider in Ryan's hand, so that's going to take care of one of the cards. And these Floodborn Flynns are going to be really scary at closing out the game very, very quickly.
And there's a second Flynn, like you were saying, able to close out the game. Even better, having 2 when your opponent only has 1 card in hand. Able to see that this last card in Mark's hand is a Maui with that 1-drop Diablo.
Interesting decision to keep the Maui instead of the goat. At least the goat can help you progress your game plan and try to keep up in the lore race. Ryan is never going to leave a character exerted for something like a fox or a Maui to challenge unless you absolutely have to. And all of his threats, biggest threats right now are these Flynns that have evasive, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, I think he ended up inking the Maui anyway. You really want to get to 6 ink, so you have 6 or 7 inks. You can get to top deck Medusa or Be Prepared as an option, but Ryan's not going to give you any more time. I think Be Prepared is going to be out of the question, actually, because now you're going to quest for 8 with these Flynns and go up to 16, threatening game next turn. So Be Prepared's off the table, and I think, yeah, they're going to go ahead and scoop it up and go to game 3.
Yeah, Mark just seeing, like we have seen this weekend, the power of Flynn when there are no cards in your opponent's hand. Flynn just able to really gain so much to where it's hard to be dealt with, especially with evasive.
Yeah, so we'll see. So Mark will get to be on the play for game 3. We really see the power. I mean, Ryan didn't even have Bucky on turn 2. He had it on like turn 5 or 6, but it still ended up being one of the more important cards in the matchup. It helps you finish getting those last couple cards out of Mark's hand, and then your win condition Flynns can just, you know, quest the game before you even have a chance to get 7 ink to top deck. Be prepared. Even a top decked Medusa would have had a hard time choosing a target. I mean, you've got to target one of these Flynns that are running away with the lure race. But that means you're going to leave your opponent with that active beast that's just drawing him 2 cards a turn. So it's just a little too much pressure from Ryan's characters.
While these 2 players are shuffling, let's head on over to our second feature match for round 7. John piloting an Emerald Steel list versus Frank piloting an Amber Steel song list. Looks like they had just ended their first game with John taking the win. John able to overcome that Amber Steel song.
Yeah, when we last looked, it looked like Frank had a pretty healthy board. He had a couple singer aerials. He had the 1-drop Cinderella, but it looks like he had just started running out of cards, and he was having to sing a lot of removal songs onto John's characters. And John still had a couple Buckies and a Hidden Cove in play, so I mean, any big like 5-cost Floodborn to finish off Frank's hand, and if Frank couldn't top deck out of it, could have just closed the game out very quickly.
All these 2 are shuffling up, and we're getting ready for game 2 in both of these feature matches. I just want to give a quick shout out to Charlie's Collectible Show here in Stone Mountain, Georgia, for hosting today's Lorcana 10K. We want to thank them so much for allowing us to come in and to stream, and for allowing everyone, including us, to be able to watch all of these competitive events. We want to thank Charlie's Collectible Show, who is it's a passionate community that celebrates fandoms every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring anime, toys, comics, video games, TCGs, and many more. We want to thank our production team, part of it being from Nexus. Nexus is a gaming venue located in Waco, Texas. Nexus offers esports, TCG, and dining, and is an elite gaming hangout to build your local gaming community. We want to thank Diamond Ink Apparel for doing the art for today's playmats. If you're looking for artwork for your playmat or t-shirts, head on over to diamondinapparel.com. We want to thank GFQ Underground for these amazing playmats that you see here on the feature match. All of the playmats were printed by them, and so we want to thank GFQ Underground for allowing us to have these playmats. Here's Ryan taking a peek at Mark's hand. We saw some Be Prepareds, and I believe there was a Brawl.
Yeah, there was a couple healthy targets for a turn 2 Ursula Deceiver. Now, that one can't hit the Brawl, but Ryan's aware of it now and can make decisions based on that if he does have the Shift Diablo line, if that's what he wants to go with. But let's see, turn 2 Bucky, and that is the most important card in this matchup. So, and Mark didn't have a 1-drop also. I really feel like that Mark wants to get under this Bucky deck, and I mean, he's got B King Undisputed in his hand. He had Friends of the Other Side. Go ahead and fire that off now. I think that is the correct play. He's got B King and Be Prepared in his hand still. So 2-drop Ursulas are really live, and and Ryan knows that because he got to see Ryan's hand already. And I don't double Be Prepared. Decides to take that over the B King. That's a tough decision. I would have to think about that for a while. I mean,
he chose that pretty quick too.
Be Prepared is scary. You know what? B King is not great right now because I mean you've got the 1-drop Diablo, you've got the 2-drop Ursula, you've got plenty of fodder for that. Let's just get these. Be Prepared is one way that Mark can get back into this game if he's able to get to 7 ink, depending on Ryan's hand. Yeah, I think you can leave him with the B King and it's fine. And it's funny. Let's see. He's got Queen's Castle, goes for a Maleficent. Yeah, I mean, Queen's Castle is just not going to do enough. At least the Maleficent gets to replace itself, and you get on the board. Oh, man, and we see Ryan draw the Diablo there. And you make Mark take off their turn 5 if you play this Diablo, and that might just be the play. They're still going to have to discard to the Bucky as well.
Yeah, this Diablo really just showing just the strength of the card from set 4. Opting not to play Diablo and playing this Jafar Juggernaut, really a great challenger, able to draw you cards whenever it does challenge a character and banish them, which we see Maleficent Sorceress, a great target to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I like this line. That lets Ryan ink to 4, keep on curve. You can play the Diablo later, and Market might end up having to discard the Brawl at some point, or even ink if they're wanting to try to get to that 6 or 7 for that other Be Prepared. We did see from that Bucky trigger, they went ahead and pitched the B King Undisputed because it's non-inkable. It's a song that get hit by another Ursula, and it's just not a good play here. Ryan's got a couple different targets that he would not mind just throwing away to it. So just really wouldn't fit Mark's game plan. Mark can ink up to 4, but he's still 3 away from that other Be Prepared. If Ryan just keeps going, I don't know. The right play by Mark may just have to be ink pass, and just hope that he can get there. Maybe he'll draw Friends of the Other Side. And I think this is going to be a bounce of that Maleficent. And then, so we ink to 5 now. You can replay the Maleficent. Doing his best, and I think I just saw Medusa as well. 2 away from getting to that Be Prepared, which could change the course of this game if Ryan's not able to get it out of his hand. But if he finds another Ursula Deceiver, that could be pretty devastating.
Here's a Flynn Rider getting 1 card from Mark. Like you're saying, how if Mark is able to get up to 7, playing that Be Prepared, really a game-changing state. For those of you who are watching at home, we want to thank you for joining us here today at Charlie's Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K. If you've missed any of the rounds from earlier today, you can head on over to 20 Lore Pro on our YouTube, and we'll have all of those videos available for you next week.
So yeah, Ryan develops the Flynn. Mark does have to end up discarding that Madame Medusa, which really hurts. That would have been a nice answer to either that Dreadnought or the Flynn. But I think Mark's game plan, I think he's just honing in, trying to get to this turn 7 Be Prepared, and that non-inkable is just not going to cut it. So he inks a Brawl, so now Ryan is may be free to play his Diablo. But okay, so Mark actually had a second Medusa, so that makes even more sense. So he's going up to 6 ink. He's still got 3 cards in hand. That Medusa gets to hit the Flynn, and then it's really going to come down to, is Ryan gonna have a way to get that second Be Prepared that he knows about? He knows that it's there. So he could just decide not to commit anything else to the board, but then that also means that Bucky's not triggering either. So this is going to be kind of a weird back and forth of what Ryan decides to do on his next turn.
We see Mark up to 6 ink here. Next turn will be at 7. We'll see what he can do with having this Bucky on the board. tapping all the way out for another Flynn.
Yeah, decides to go ahead and commit more to the board. Let's get another Bucky trigger. Even if you be prepared, he's pretty much saying you have to have an inkable next turn to be able to play that. Be prepared, but then you're going to have one card left and nothing in play.
What of a board state that we've seen Ruby Amethyst be okay with top decking, and Ryan, though, if they're able to top deck into another beast, Tragic Hero, a Flynn that allows them to quest for 4 with no cards in your opponent's hand, really some top decks on both sides from both players that can be very powerful.
Yeah, and well, Mark getting to 7 ink is fine with going to a top deck war. I think their top decks are going to traditionally be a little bit more powerful. So Ryan go ahead and commits another ink, he pitches an Ursula Deceiver of All, and I think it's going to be a pass. He knows what's coming unless just Mark just miraculously doesn't have another inkable. He's got the Be Prepared, another an unknown card in hand, and then he's going to get to draw for the turn. So as long as those one of those non-Be Prepared cards is inkable, and yeah, Ryan's even like, you know what, it's probably coming. Let's this is correct. Let's get the questing. Let's get the lore in. And yeah, we see at least a Sisu. So we're getting to 7. We're going to quest for 3. We're going to reset the board. Have 1 card left in hand, and I believe Ryan has 2 cards left in their hand too. So now it's just going to kind of go to the top decks, but Ruby Amethyst is happy to have 1 card left and have 7 ink, so all of their top decks are live. So we've got, looks like, is it
Ryan
2 Diablos? Okay. No, it's Diablo and a Cove, and go ahead and play it. So now you can't brawl it. You could still Madame Medusa it, and Mark follows it up with a Queen's Castle. So we're just kind of racing here. All right, so Ryan has a Tragic Beast in hand as well. So let's see if he goes. He may commit that, but oh man, just a turn too late. He does have another Ursula Deceiver. If you'd have had that 2 turns ago, that would have been devastating. So yeah, he decides to just go ahead and ink it, and then get that Tragic Beast in play so he can move it. And I like this play. He moves it to Hidden Cove, so now Madame Medusa cannot take it out, and he gets to start drawing those extra cards. With the castle, Mark finds a goat. He goes up to 5. He's still behind on the lore race, can move it over to the castle if he chooses, but the castle is pretty much threatened to be taken out, but he will have to commit the beast to the challenge, so the beast may end up be getting turned off, but I don't think he's going to care because Diablo is still going to be running away with the game.
And that's something, is finding these optimal plays with your cards, having the extra ink available by inking the Ursula Deceiver, allowing you to move that beast immediately over, protects it. This has really been a locations battle that we've seen here.
Yeah, so Ryan has a sudden shield to get the last card out of Mark's hand. He is going to go ahead and take out the Queen's Castle. Puts a couple damage with Let the Storm Mage onto the goat. Plays the Robin Hood. Going to try to close the game out as quickly as possible. Mark's got no cards in hand, just in top deck mode. And then, yeah, Ryan will get to draw an extra card, and the card for the turn for Mark is Sisu. And yeah, I mean, this is the correct play. Let's get some damage on the beast, so at least you stop drawing extra cards there. But the Diablo, still unanswered, still going to get to keep drawing extra cards. And now the beast is just unlocked to just quest. So it's like, if you're not going to draw me extra cards, then I'm going to quest for 2, so why not?
And now Ryan, with all these extra cards in hand, beast has already done its job. Diablo can keep going, doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, looks like we're going to quest for 4, the full amount. See another Storm Rage on, potentially maybe another Diablo in Ryan's hand. Decides to put a couple damage on Sisu. Let's see what we draw for that. It's another Tragic Beast. Okay, 1 Diablo decides not to commit the other Floodborn Diablo, which I think is absolutely fine. You don't want to put Mark in a situation to just top deck, be prepared to completely get out of this hole. But yeah, I mean, Ryan's at 12. Sisu can trade with the Beast. And then Ryan still has 3 lore, can go to 15 next turn, barring whatever Mark just top decked.
And really, again, having that extra ink available to move everything over to your Cove. Everything's stronger. Everything does more damage.
Yeah, so decided to quest for 2 with the Sisu, and then instead put the Fox into the Beast, and then just replay the Sisu, who's got more lore value anyway, and just desperately trying to hang on, at least try to get some lore value. But Ryan's got 4 cards in hand, just kind of going on all cylinders. We know he's got another Tragic Beast in hand as well. getting another one-drop Robin Hood. See how much more Ryan wants to commit to the board. Okay, well, it just has a clean answer to the Sisu, and I like this because you just got this backup Tragic Beast in hand. You're threatening game next turn. You're going up to oh no, he's gonna be one short unless he has a shift Robin Hood. So he's he'll be one short because that one Robin Hood was just not enough to do it. Cusco for the turn for Mark, not quite enough. 4 more goes to 19. Mark all but has to draw, be prepared next turn. He's making a couple looks, but Diablo's going to keep drawing extra cards as well. Yep, you got to throw away the Cusco for an extra card draw, but Diablo draws an extra card too, so it's pretty unfortunate. But hey, you got to play to your outs. Draws an extra card. I see a Chernobog's followers. And a Maleficent, so that means be prepared is not live anymore. Rabbit, not good enough. Ryan's going to take this game 2 games to 3, finishing up round 7.
Wow, and what just a great game that we got to see here in Game 3. Really seeing Ryan make a ton of optimal plays. Thank you all for joining us here today at Charlie Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K. We're going to take a quick break before we head on over to doing interviews if we can.
Oh, we've still got some left on our backup match.
That's great. Well, we're going to get over to our second match.
It looks like we are on a game 3. John Rowe on Emerald Steel, Bucky Diablo, and Frank on that Steel Song. And it looks like John has kind of gotten control of this game. He's got a Hidden Cove active. He's got a Bucky. He's got a Diablo active, putting a second Diablo into play, able to move one of these Diablos over to the Cove. Frank with just a lonely pirate in play. He's got the Smee that could potentially take out the Hidden Cove. But yeah, I mean, with only a couple cards left in hand, and that Bucky on John's side is that's pretty scary. He's got 4 ink. It looks like maybe along came Zeus. He's going to use that to take out one of the Diablos. Smee going to go ahead and take out the Cove, and then pass the turn. Smee goes up to 2 damage. John looks like pretty commanding. Maybe not a huge lead, honestly. If we may not have the lore totals updated, but if it is still 0-0. Then this could still be anybody's game if Frank has something like Grab Your Swords potentially as a top deck to reset the board. But yeah, we'll see. Let's see what John does for his turn here.
And gosh, this Bucky Diablo line, again, like we've been saying, really strong. With Amber Steel Song here, we see Smee, really great challenger, already has 2 damage on it. It's been doing work. But we got to start seeing some singers from the Amber Steel side on Frank. That's what he's looking for, having to discard both a Whole New World and a huge Cinderella Stoutheart. Looks like he's left with no cards in hand now.
Yeah, so Frank is just drawing off the top. Swords and the like is not a viable option. We're not even at 5 ink yet. Does top deck along came Zeus, so that's something to get the party started. Take care of that Tragic Beast. But that was a huge play from John last turn, getting those last 2 cards out of Frank's hand with the Bucky trigger and the follow-up Sudden Chill. But Frank can't really do anything else with his Smee. If you quest with it, it's just going to get banished at the end of the turn. And no cards left in Frank's hand, so Bucky's trigger is not really a worry. But Diablo just going to be still free reigning. And yeah, this is probably not going to be something Frank wants to see. If John exerts 5 ink, it cannot be anything good for his side.
Gosh, there was a time that existed where we could have seen Frank top deck an ink and then play Whole New World.
So John with a couple cards in hand decides to just do nothing. I actually think I see 2. We don't talk about Bruno, so that was the consideration if he wanted to target a Smee with that. And Frank just has to, oh man, he has to play a sad Strength of the Raging Fire to deal 1 damage to that Diablo. Because I mean, you don't really want. I don't know if it's correct to ink it there either. It's pretty rough. John responds with a Strength of Raging Fire of his own. And any characters that Frank top decks at this point, there's double. We don't talk about Bruno in John's hand, and now we've got double Diablo. And I mean, if we're so free that Bucky is questing, it's not good news for Frank. Frank keeps 1 card in hand, just past the turn. I imagine it's some 5-cost non-inkable card that he can't play. John, I think he got a Sudden Chill. Yeah, so the Sudden Chill is just going to eat this last card. And Frank's had enough, you know. Yeah, if you're not having any more fun, it's fine. You scoop it up.
even at that early, just seeing the board state the way it was, inking, I would say that inking the Strength of Raging Fire instead of doing one may have been an option, but even then, everything else you would want to play is most likely in the 6 to 7 range, like the Cinderella. It's just, or Tinkerbells, and at this point in the game, it's just too far gone.
Yeah, John really turned the corner with that double discard there with the Bucky into the Sudden Chill and getting the big Cinderella was kind of whatever, but hitting a whole new world was at least a hope that Frank could possibly get to. But yeah, that's going to do it for round 7. And yeah, we'll see if we can get an interview in before we move on to the final round of the day.
Thank y'all so much for joining us here at Charlie's Collectible Show's Lorcana 10K and here at 20 Lore Pro. If you missed any of today's rounds, we'll have them up on YouTube later on this week. And we will also be live over at Game Castle this coming Saturday.